Ever wondered what's the difference between a software upgrade and a USB format install? Well, in this video, I'll explain exactly that. With a software upgrade, typically the most noticeable attribute about it is how convenient it is, right? You can easily download the software image to your computer and then use some application like WinSCP to leverage the FTP protocol to remotely transfer that image to your device and then upgrade it. It's pretty convenient. Now, performing that software upgrade, like any software upgrade, is going to erase all of your logs on the device. But in the case of a regular software upgrade, you don't have to worry about your config being wiped or anything right there. It's designed so that your configuration stays in place, and in a lot of scenarios, that software will check to see if there's any discrepancies between the config that you have currently running on your devices and the software version that you're upgrading to. Now, like with anything, there are a few caveats to keep in mind. When you perform a regular software upgrade, it's only going to update the primary software partition. In a lot of cases, there's a primary and a backup partition, and in this case, it updates the primary and the current software that's in place becomes the new backup, right? If you were previously running 21.4 R2 or something like that, and you're upgrading to 22.4 R2, let's say, just to keep it simple, well, that means that that previous version of code, 21.4 R2, will now become your backup, and the current version that you're installing will be your primary partition, the 22.4 R2. This is helpful for in a scenario where you upgrade to that software version of code, and let's say you encounter an issue with something not working as expected. Well, that gives you the ability to go ahead and remotely trigger a failover back to that previous working version of software. Another thing to keep in mind with the regular software upgrade is that if you're on a legacy version of code, let's say 17.4 or something like that, and you're trying to upgrade to a newer release like 21.4 or 22.4 or something like that, the recommended upgrade path will consist of many different hops that you'll need to slowly, incrementally upgrade to in order for you to get to that desired release. And now that may be pretty tedious, and depending on what platform you're working with, that can be a rather lengthy process. Now, on the other hand, when you're upgrading a device using the USB format install method, this is pretty frequently used in a situation where you're attempting to recover a device, but it's also really beneficial when a customer is running a really old version of code and they want to perform that direct upgrade to that desired release without having to go through those, several different hops, depending on how far or old of a code version they're currently on. However, with that being the case of them being able to perform that direct upgrade, it's important to understand that this is erasing everything on the box and placing the device in a factory default state. That means that not only are the logs going to be erased and alarms being cleared and stuff like that, but you're also going to lose any active configuration that's on the device. So it's definitely recommended that if you do plan on performing a format install, to back up your config before doing so. What's nice though is that if you wanted to upgrade all of the partitions on a device simultaneously without having to do multiple upgrades to upgrade each of those partitions, the primary and the backup, so forth, well, doing a USB format install will allow you to update all of those software partitions on your device all at once. Now, unlike the convenience of a typical software upgrade, the biggest caveat with doing a USB format install is that it requires you to be within close proximity to the device. Since this process requires you to create a bootable USB drive to install the software directly onto that device, well, you need to be present. And if you're working with a device that's in a remote location, then this may not be an option for you. This may also present a challenge to folks that are working with a device that's in a secure environment where USBs aren't permitted. Just something to keep in mind. Well, folks, that's it. I hope you found this video helpful comparing the differences between a software upgrade versus a format installation. If you did, be sure to smash that like button and consider subscribing to the channel to stay tuned for future videos. As always, thanks for viewing, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.